Welcome back to my YouTube channel. So today we're going to be doing a video where we get into the origins of Yu-Gi-Oh! Y'all remember that iconic series from our childhood on 4Kids TV, but y'all know when any anime gets adapted for US audience, they heavily edit it down. So today I'm going to recap the manga of Yu-Gi-Oh! Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a little bit more, well, a lot more sadistic, mentally disturbed. He's a creep. He's on demon time in the manga. So with that being said, let's get into today's video. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and let's get into the video and find out how dark Yugi really gets in his comic. So chapter 1 of the Yugi manga, his dark ass origin. And just a PSA before we get started, I'm going to use their English dubbed over version names because I'm not trying to trigger my speech impediment and I'm not trying to say nobody's names disrespectfully. So on the first couple pages, they're giving us a little lore, a little world building. So they're pretty much telling us in ancient times, the ancient Egyptians had magic and they would play these games called shadow game. And they would help predict the futures of like men's and kings back then. But we get to present day and it's a school morning, you know? And as you see, the kids are all leaving for recess, I guess they have in high school. Our recesses stopped in elementary school here, but shit, if I was in high school, I sure could have used the recess too. So as the kids and the rest of Yugi's classmates are going out, Yugi stays behind because he's lame. He's like a loser. You know what? I don't want to call Yugi a loser. He's awkward. And even though the kids invite him, Yugi's like, no, honey, you only want me on your team if you want to lose. He hasn't flourished yet. So he stays behind for his recess and decides to work on his puzzle. So as the other kids go out to recess, even though they're in 10th grade, Yugi decides to stay in the classroom and he's going to do his puzzle, his Millennium Puzzle. And he sees on the box it has a riddle. And the riddle says, this treasure can be seen, but you haven't seen it. So just as he's about to get started, Joey and Tristan enter. Oh, and if you haven't watched part 1, I'm using their dubbed English version name because I'm not trying to butcher their names, and also I'm not trying to trigger my speech impediment because don't nobody got time for that. So get this, as Yugi's minding his business about to put his puzzle together, he's interrupted by two bitch-ass bullies, Tristan and Joey, who, for the lack of better terms, they just like to fuck with the small guy. They're simply bored and they see Yugi as a small, easy target. Think pretty much thing 1 and thing 2. And as you see, they're grabbing it and they're just torturing poor Yugi. Like, give him a... I mean, look at Yugi. He's 5'2", probably 4'11" without the hair. So as you see, Joey and Tristan, they're kind of cruel in the manga. The Tristan, they pretty much bully Yugi just simply because they can. And they're the type of bullies, they're bored, so they're gonna pick on the little guy. And insecure, of course, but that's obvious when you're dealing with bullies. And as you see, Joey's trying to get Yugi to man up and fight him, but Yugi hates violence. That's one thing about Yugi, he hates violence. And see, that's the only way Joey's gonna let him have his Millennium Puzzle box back, is if he fights him. And as you see down in this corner, Joey's kind of holding his Millennium Puzzle box, because Yugi's short as hell. Like I said, he's 5'3", 4'11" without the hair. I would have been snatched that shit out of his hand, and then put him in timeout. But that's just the bitch I am. Getting back to the story. So as he's holding Yugi's property over his head, my girl Taya comes and snatches it out of Joey's hands and puts him in check. Cause you know in all these stories, there's always that one girl who always stands up for the little guy. No pun intended to Yugi. So like I said, we see Taya, she sends Joey and Tristan running and she gets Yugi's belongings back. And as you see, she sent these hoes running out the door. And y'all know, Taya's like, honey, don't flatter yourself. I just seen a nice guy getting taken advantage of and I had to step in. And Yugi like wonders why she did it. And she was like, I just didn't want them tossing your treasure around because I see that you cherish it. And as you see in the top corner, she hands it back to him. Now see, this is where I mentioned where Yugi's a little bit darker, creepier, and just, ugh. Because there's a part where him and Taya are just having conversation. And as Yugi and Taya are conversing, he starts to daydreaming of Taya playing basketball. Because earlier in the year, the boys would ask the girls if they want to play basketball in their school uniform, short skirt. So when they would jump to make a shot, they could see everything. And see right here, Yugi's imagining Taya making a jump shot, and it's a picture of her skirt flying up, if you know what I mean. And see, that's just one of many of the darker aspects of the comic opposed to the TV show, of course. So Taya and Yugi are talking about the Millennium Puzzle box, and she's like, well, where did you get this from? And then he pretty much tells her about his grandpa's game shop, that he has like rare and exotic occult like games that he sells there. And he looks at the puzzle as a memento of his grandpa and how it came from Egypt and all that backstory that a lot of y'all already know. And Yugi also begins to tell Taya that on the scripture that it says whoever completes the puzzle not only gets dark wisdom but gets one wish granted. And you know, Taya's giving him the positive reinforcement. She's like, honey, you gonna get that wish. But then we also discover in this column that Yugi's like, I hope so, because I've been trying to put this puzzle together for 8 years. And you know, that was pretty much skipped over in the cartoon series. And see, it's little gems like that that I live for, a little extra backstory that we didn't need, but it's kind of like an extra treat. I'm just a nerdy ass bitch like that. And then of course Taya's like, well, what is your wish? And he's like, oh, bitch, if I tell you, it's not gonna come true. Meanwhile, in the hallway, as Heckle and Jekyll, aka Joey and Tristan, are walking away from earlier bullying Yugi, they run into this glorified hall monitor. He's like a keeper of peace and justice, but not in an honorable way as a hall monitor would do in school. He's more of an eye for an eye. He's more of a you go low, I go to hell type of person. I mean, and you know what they say, the road to hell is paved with good intentions, allegedly. But this is the hall monitor, Tetsu. I think that's his name. Forgive me if I'm wrong. Y'all know who I'm talking about. Y'all can see his face. And he walks up to Joey and Tristan. He's like, I heard y'all been picking on weaker people. Bitch, what's up, pretty much. That's just me summarizing it because they do a lot of talking. And you know, he got Tristan and Joey shaking in their boots, as those hoes should. But you already know how Joey is. Joey's always big and bad when somebody's walking away, but never when they in their face. So pretty much after Tetsu checks the fuck out of Joey and Tristan, it puts it in their mind that Yugi sent him after them. Because, you know, Yugi can't fight him head up, but this guy can. So that makes Joey and Tristan mad because they're like, Yugi really sent this nigga after us? Unbeknownst to him, he works alone. Because remember, Yugi didn't send him because Yugi is very anti-violent. And after Tetsu checks him, telling him that bullying is wrong, he walks away. But what we discover is that this pisses Joey off, and Joey actually took a piece of the Millennium Puzzle out of the box when he was holding it over Yugi's head. And he took the most important piece out the eye. Joey's like, since he want to send that big ass bully after us, I'm about to throw out his most important piece, so when he finishes it, it'll never be done. And it falls into the river. So after Joey throws out Yugi's most important part of his puzzle, the eye piece, we go forward in the day to after school. And you know, Yugi's nowhere close at this point to finishing a puzzle, so all the puzzle pieces are still in the box, so he doesn't know that the most important piece of the puzzle is gone. So he's going home to continue to work on the puzzle. And then he runs into Tetsu, the one who checked Joey and Tristan in the hall. Tetsu is like, bitch, I'm your motherfucking bodyguard now. And Yugi's like, I really don't need that. That's not necessary. But Tetsu's like, bitch, I said what I said. And Yugi's like, let me get out of here because I don't know what's up with. Then Yugi goes home to his grandpa's game shop. So grandpa is very Tateya, very predatory, very like, ooh, creepy, very To Catch a Predator. And Yugi's pretty much like, Taya, I'm love that you came over, but I gotta work on this puzzle. But meanwhile, grandpa is pretty much like, he wants the Millennium Puzzle back because he knows pretty much that that Millennium Puzzle is gonna be worth serious money one day. And grandpa's like, honey, I can make a serious buck on it. And grandpa's like, it takes serious intellect to be able to put that puzzle together and decipher its text. And then grandpa gives Taya a little brief history lesson on the Millennium Puzzle, telling her that it was found in the early 1900s by an archaeologist who said it was cursed. And on his deathbed, he died continuously repeating Shadow Game. And he died screaming. I mean, honey, a bitch like me, I'm like, take it back. I don't need no ill omens. So later that evening, we see Yugi down here. He's working on it. And then we see Yugi earlier. He was running from his grandpa. Because like I said, the grandpa's trying to get it back. Because he's like, honey, this is an antique. This is something that can bring real money. And Yugi's like, honey, finders keepers, losers weepers. I'm a grown adult that just said that. And as the night goes on, Louis, hello, Yugi stays up completing the Millennium Puzzle, and as you see, he starts to slowly get the progress that he finally haven't seen in the last 8 years. So the next day, Tetsu comes find Yugi because like now he's Yugi's bodyguard that he didn't ask for, and he's like, Yugi, I have something to show you, and I'm sure you're gonna be happy since I did this for you. And we see Joey and Tristan beaten to a bloody pulp. I'm not saying they deserve it because I'm very anti-violence by all means necessary. However, Yugi runs up to Joey and Tristan. He's like, who did this to you? And I'm like, are you serious, Yugi? Like, knock, knock, hello. But you know, Yugi, he's an inside kid. He's incredibly naive. Let me cover up this box where it shows them fighting because you know, y'all know how TikTok like to block me. Or any black creator for that instance, but we ain't finna get into that. And Tetsu's like, bitch, you asked for this. And Yugi's like, for the 13th millionth time, I did not ask for this. I don't like violence. And as Tetsu's about to hit Joey and Tristan again, Yugi jumps in a way to protect them. So Yugi, you know, him playing Captain Save-A-Ho, he jumps in front of Tetsu from hitting Joey and Tristan. Because, you know, once again, let's get it through our heads, Yugi is anti-violence. Which I'm trying to make sure y'all all know because once Dark Yugi takes over and he becomes possessed, you guys are going to see such a yin and yang in the characteristic traits of the two. They are very polar opposites in the way they go about their business, their life, and their ethics and their morality. And Tetsu's like, I'm gonna whoop their ass whether you like it or not because it's my duty to punish these guys. I don't know why it took me so long to get that out. And as Tetsu continues to donkey kick Joey and Tristan, Yugi is trying to get him to stop, and he's like, you can't do this to my friends. What the fuck? And Yugi's like, they weren't bullying me, even though they were. He was like, but this punishment that you're handing out is no good. It's no better than what they did. And he's like, you're calling these punks your friend? Most people hate those that bully them. And Tetsu's like, if you want me to lay off of them after me protecting you, you gonna have to pay me, bitch. And you gonna have to pay me $200,000. Now, I don't know where they expected 10th graders to get that kind of money, but hey, this is a fantasy world. And Yugi's like, what? And then Tetsu's like, bitch, you heard me. Or maybe you're not satisfied because I didn't hit them enough. And Yugi's like, so you're really asking for 200,000 yen. And I don't know what that's equivalent to, but it's still a lot of money. And Yugi's like, I don't got that. And Tetsu starts giving Yugi these ooh-wop-de-woos and start knocking him upside of his head brutally. And as Yugi's taking these brutal hits to the head, the brain, the stomach, the chest, the lung, Yugi is remembering that he made his wish on the puzzle. As he's getting hit, he remembers that the wish he made on the puzzle was he wanted friends who wouldn't betray him no matter what. And he also beseeched in his wish for friends that he would also never betray, no matter what. And as Yugi's losing consciousness, Tetsu's like, oh bitch, we're not done just because I gave you a little taste of this ass whooping. Just know, if you don't have my money, it's gonna get worse for all of you hoes. And he pulls out a blade, because when I tell you Tetsu, and this, murder ain't nothing in this world. Just because they're high schoolers, he will stab the fuck out of you. Because he believes in that eye for an eye type, just let the punishment fit the crime. So now Yugi knows it's literally a life or death thing if he doesn't bring Tetsu this money. And after getting that ass whooping, Yugi's like, I gotta go home because, honey, I am broken down and tight. And he only realized he misses a piece because he finally finishes it after 8 years. That's like getting to a finish line and they tell you gotta start all over again. And Yugi is just pissed. He is beyond flabbergasted. And the more tragic part about this is Yugi's not mad because he wasted the last 8 years of his life on putting a puzzle together, because at the end of the day, his wish for friendship won't be fulfilled because he's lonely. So yeah, Yugi's pretty much sad after he realized the last piece of the puzzle is not in the box because his wish for friendship will not be fulfilled. And at the core of Yugi, before he's possessed, he's lonely. And he begins to break down because, believe it or not, for some people, loneliness is definitely a death blow. But then his grandpa knocks on the door and sees he's finished the puzzle. And his grandpa is proud of him. However, he sees the middle pieces missing and he tells him. And his grandpa tells him he has a surprise for him and whips out the missing piece of the puzzle. Ooh, those grandparents be having some type of magic. And Yugi's like, Grandpa, how'd you get this? Grandpa tells him while he was up here these last couple hours, a boy dropped it off who was soaking wet. And as we see, that wet boy is Joey, showing that he went back into the lake to get Yugi's missing puzzle. Because after Yugi saved Joey's life from Tetsu, he showed that this is a guy of quality. And maybe he was wrong, which bitch you was. And Yugi finally has the missing piece to his puzzle. No pun intended. Part 9 of Yugi's origin story. So Yugi finally gets the missing piece to the puzzle, and the dark mystical properties of the Millennium Puzzle are finally activated. And remember, according to the prophecy of the Millennium Puzzle, this puzzle sort of got a lot of profit. The one who completes the puzzle will inherit Shadow Games and will dispense justice to all and judge evil. And as you see, Yugi is being imbued with all the dark wisdom, the dark knowledge, and the ancient spirit of the pharaoh who was entombed within this puzzle for the last, 3,000 years? So pretty much, Yugi is being possessed by an ancient spirit of a pharaoh. So now that Yugi has all this dark wisdom, he calls up Tetsu, because remember, he still owes Tetsu $200,000, but now Yugi is zooped up. Yugi's like, okay, Tetsu, you want it on site? Bitch, it's on site. He's like, Tetsu, meet me at the school so I can give you your little funky ass money, because I got something more for that ass. It's on site. It's on site. And honestly, let's keep it real. After a hoe threatened to cut me like Tetsu threatened to cut Yugi, after Yugi told him he didn't want him defending him, bitch, all it can be is on site. So Tetsu arrives at school at midnight and he's like, okay, bitch, it's midnight and I'm about to get my motherfucking money. However, as Tetsu walks around the corner, he sees Yugi. And see, this should be a red flag right there, because this ain't the little short 4'11" scared boy with the overly gelled hair. This motherfucker looks possessed. He looked like he's on all types of narcotics. Motherfucking middle name look like fentanyl. Sorry. And Yugi with them crazy eyes, he's like, well, this is dark Yugi now. He's like, I'm glad you came. And Tetsu's like, okay, yeah, bitch, where's my 200,000 yen? And then Yugi's like, we're gonna play a game first. Tetsu's like, bitch, you playing game with my money? Now you fucking with my funny bone. But Yugi's like, I don't give a fuck. He's like, since paying you just outright would be boring, I like a slow torture. And Yugi's like, bitch, if you play my motherfucking game, I'ma double your money. And you know, greed is ruling him. And you know, twice the greed, twice the fall, like with pride. So, of course, he's like, okay, I'm down. What do we gotta play? I'll play anything. And see, you never want to say that to a nigga that's dubbed the king of games. And Yugi's like, well, first off, if you want to play this game, take out the knife that you're hiding in your pocket. And Yugi begins to tell him So Yugi's like, okay, Tetsu, I'm about to show you the rules of this game that we're about to play. The players, so Tetsu and Yugi, they take turn placing money on top of their hand, and then they stab the money with a knife. So more than likely, they're going to put the $200,000 yen on top of their hands, and they're going to stab it with the knife. And you know how sometimes knives are hard to get through, like the type of consistency that money is, or yens are? So I'm imagine it's going to be a lot harder, especially with a thick wad of money like that. And since, thanks to one of the people who watched my videos commenting, $200,000 yen is equal to $2,000 in American money. So since Yugi's doubling it, because Tetsu agreed to play the game, it's going to be $4,000 on each of their hand that they have to stab. And whatever money they are able to stab with the knife goes to that player of that turn. And then the opposite player takes their turn, and slowly as the money starts to dwindle down, it gets closer to them literally stabbing themselves. And Tetsu's like, what kind of game is this? But see, this is a game of greed. You see, who would willingly want to stab themselves? Somebody who's greedy for money. And if you're the one who stabs your hand, you automatically lose, and you have to give up all your winnings to the opponent. So not only do you get stabbed, you walk away with nothing. And Tetsu in the back of his head, because you know he ain't gonna let Yugi see him sweat, he's like, did I meet the wrong Yugi? Because this bitch is way different from the nerd I be seeing in class. And Tetsu's like, bitch, you got guts. And Yugi's like, sounds fun, huh? And Yugi tells him one more thing. If you break the rules, you will be cursed with a penalty game. If TikTok wasn't so OCD, I would show you guys, but you know how TikTok is. They'll take a video down for life. So Yugi goes first, and Yugi's just hacking away because, you know, he don't give no fuck. And during Yugi's turn, he's like, I try to use my strength, but not many stuff. But you see Tetsu, he just goes straight down and plunges into the dollar bills because he wants that money. And he's not realizing the point of the game is to control your greed. When you get too greedy, you use too much force, and you're more willing to stab your hand. Which, if you take out of the context of it being a cartoon, it's a pretty good metaphor for the way greed corrupts, absolutely. And most of the time, greed does more damage than good. Well, when it comes to greed, that's all the time it does more damage than good, sorry. As the turns go on, there becomes less and less money. But the greed in Tetsu heightens. And Tetsu's in his bag. He has the most money in this game, and Tetsu realizes as his greed grows, so does his strength. But that's bad because the more his greed grows, his strength grows, and the less money that's there, the more he's able to stab himself. I'm going to be careful on the pictures I use because this takes so much to censor. So as you see, as they're intensifying in the game, Tetsu isn't realizing the reason why his strength is becoming so unbearable and he's becoming such a force is because his strength is fueled by his greed. He's still not getting that basic key factor because he's blinded by the greed. He knows he's going to go straight through the money and stab his hand. And remember, whoever stabs their hand first loses. And if we go down here, we see that Yugi, Dark Yugi, is dropping nothing but gems and fat. If you let your own greed control you, you won't be able to stop your hand. A shadow game reveals a person's true character and thus determines their own fate. So pretty much he's like, bitch, I just brought you to this arena. However, you control what happens to you. And then of course, because Tetsu will never learn from his mistakes, in his head, he computes that life lesson that Yugi just gave him, as in, since I have all this strength within his hand, I can use it to stab Yugi. And I mean, he wants to stab Yugi in the face, not like in a Scream where they do it across the neck. He's trying to stab Yugi in the face. And as you see, Yugi was on some Spider-Man shit and he jumps out the way in the nick of time. But since he broke the rules of the game, he has to answer a penalty. And you know, Yugi petty ass, this is what he lives for. He's like, finally, I can let loose. And you know, the Pharaoh's probably like, damn, I can finally stretch my dark magic after all these thousands of years being trapped up in that triangle. And then, you know, Yugi's third eye, that evil eye starts glowing. So what Yugi's doing is he's shattering Tetsu's mind. He's driving him insane and making his mind his own prison. And then as Yugi is shattering his mind, he gives him the final curse upon his eyes. And he says, the object of your greed will be all that your eyes can see. And he starts to see money falling everywhere. And you see, he's happy as hell because he's like money everywhere. But however, he doesn't realize the game is over, and the game is over within his sanity. He has lost his sanity. And Yugi's like, since you're so greedy, this must be a happy ending to you. And the next morning, when everybody returns to school, we discover that Tetsu is rolling in a pile of garbage and debris because all he sees is money. And then Yugi arrives at school, and we see he doesn't even know what he's talking about. He just feels extra tired because we discover this is a whole different entity, a whole different persona that takes over him. He has Part 12 in the finale, for real, for real. So now we see that as Yugi goes back to school, that he doesn't remember anything about what he did last night. They're two spirits sharing the same body. And as Yugi's on his way to class, because poor Tetsu over here, his mind is gone and it ain't coming back. Just before Yugi gets to class, he's stopped by Joey, who's pretty much still playing tough guy, but like a kind tough guy where he's like, you know how you give your friends a hard time? It's like a friendly hard time. And Yugi begins to realize that Joey actually is his friend, as this is the most real conversation they've ever had without it getting physical or them bullying him. And Joey realizing he has a real friend in Yugi now, he's like, Yugi and Joey are visible, but our friendship is invisible. He's like, it's friendship, and that triggers a thought within, making Yugi remember the riddle on the back of the Millennium Puzzle. It's in plain sight, but visible. Friendship, showing his wish finally been granted. Thank you guys if you made it this far to the end of the video. I know I do a lot of talking. It's a lot of, ooh, like, bitch, shut the fuck up and get to the plot. However, I just want to thank you guys for watching my video. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Tell me what you guys want me to do next, what you want me to react to, review, give my opinion that nobody asked for on. I'm always open to do something. Follow me on TikTok. That's the quickest way to see my videos and updates. Follow me on Instagram, too. Send a bitch some love. But with that being said, I will see you guys next time. And let me go heal my face because as you see, I got a burn on my face. So here I go oversharing. Bye, you guys. See you guys next time. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.